The hum of the city outside his penthouse was distant, a white noise blending seamlessly with the quiet beeping of the automated security system. Jeremy Thompson had never imagined this would be his life. Wealth beyond imagination, a luxury apartment overlooking the neon-lit skyline of New Manhattan, and 2 alien maids from a distant star system living under his roof. Yet, here he was, and something about it felt off. It all began 2 weeks ago when his life took an unexpected turn. A routine workday at Stellar Corp, the monotonous drone of bureaucracy, processing interstellar trade permits, his daily grind. Jeremy was a man of routines, always cautious, always responsible. He had sworn off gambling after a particularly nasty losing streak had cost him a month's rent last year. But something about that moment had made him pause when his coworker, Mike, offered him a spot in the office lottery pool. Just for fun, he had told himself. Just 1 ticket. What were the odds anyway? Apparently, the odds were in his favor. When the lottery commission contacted him, Jeremy had assumed it was a prank. The numbers on the screen, the staggering figures being read aloud to him, were so absurd he almost laughed. He was a millionaire now. No, more than that. He had won Stellar Corp's exclusive interstellar prize package, a 1-year contract for personal service by 2 Zenian companions, the lottery commissioner had explained, as if this were a perfectly normal thing to receive. Jeremy had never even heard of the Zenians before. But soon, he would come to learn they were an exotic alien species from Xenos Prime, known for their empathic abilities, heightened intelligence, and an almost unsettling devotion to duty. The idea of having alien maids was ridiculous, outrageous even. And yet, a week later, he found himself pacing his penthouse floor as a chime signaled their arrival. Jeremy had opened the door to 2 breathtakingly beautiful women, their skin an ethereal shade of deep blue, their figures almost unnervingly perfect. One had striking pink hair cascading over her shoulders, her luminous violet eyes filled with something between amusement and curiosity. The other was a vision of grace, her long, flowing azure locks complementing her piercing gaze. They had bowed in unison. "Greetings, Master Jeremy," the pink-haired one said smoothly. "I am Sani." "And I am Lola," the other added, her voice a melodic whisper. "We are here to serve you." And just like that, they had stepped into his life. At first, Jeremy had tried to treat them like normal housekeepers, polite, professional, maintaining his personal space. But it didn't take long for things to start feeling different. The Zenians weren't just efficient. They anticipated his needs before he even voiced them. Coffee was made before he stepped out of his bedroom in the morning. His favorite meals were prepared without him ever mentioning them. His schedule, his habits, his preferences, they had learned it all instantly. Then there were the other, more unnerving things. Their presence was intoxicating. There was something in the way they moved, the way their voices seemed to linger in his mind long after they spoke. And their eyes, those eyes seemed to see straight into him. Jeremy wasn't a fool. He had read about alien mind abilities before. He knew that some species possessed empathic traits that could subtly influence those around them. Was that what was happening to him? He had tried to ignore it, until the night everything changed. A night unlike any other. The night had been restless. Jeremy tossed and turned in bed, unable to quiet his racing thoughts. He could hear the distant hum of the city, the occasional whoosh of flying cars zooming past his high-rise window. His body was tense, his mind on edge. Something about this whole arrangement was too perfect, too convenient. He stared at the ceiling, the soft glow of the city lights casting eerie shadows across his room. The penthouse was silent, save for the quiet hum of the automated climate control system. Then came the knock. Soft, deliberate. Jeremy sat up, heart pounding. Who the hell was knocking on his bedroom door this late? Master Jeremy. Sani's voice drifted through the door, a gentle lilt that sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. Are you awake? Jeremy hesitated. His mind screamed at him to ignore it, to act like he was asleep, but his traitorous mouth responded before he could stop himself. "Yeah, what's up?" The door slid open without permission. And there they stood, Sani and Lola, dressed in something far too revealing to be considered standard maid attire. Silken nightgowns clung to their impossibly perfect forms, their bioluminescent skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Jeremy swallowed hard. This had to be a dream. "We sensed your restlessness," Lola explained, stepping inside. "On Xenos, it is customary for companions to provide comfort during sleepless nights." Jeremy blinked. Comfort? Before he could react, both of them had slipped into bed beside him. His body went rigid. This was not happening. This was definitely not happening. Sani nestled against him, her skin cool and smooth against his. "Is this not agreeable?" she asked, her voice a whisper against his ear. Jeremy's heart thundered in his chest. What was going on? Lola trailed her fingers lightly down his arm. "We can leave if you prefer," she murmured, tilting her head slightly. His mind screamed at him to say yes, to tell them this was inappropriate, that they needed boundaries. Instead, what came out was, "It's fine." Lola's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then let us stay." Jeremy lay there, staring at the ceiling, his entire reality spiraling into something he no longer understood. Something wasn't right. Something about them, about all of this, wasn't right. And as exhaustion finally overtook him, one lingering thought whispered through his mind before he drifted into uneasy sleep. Had he really won the lottery, or had he just been chosen? The morning after and unsettling truths. Jeremy awoke to the soft hum of the city outside his window, the golden light of dawn filtering through the blinds. For a moment, his mind was blank, a warm haze settling over him. But then, memories from the night before came crashing down. His eyes snapped open. They were still there. Sani and Lola lay on either side of him, their lithe forms draped in silken nightgowns that shimmered faintly in the dim morning light. Their skin, that deep ethereal blue, seemed to pulse with an inner glow, like a bioluminescent tide moving beneath their flesh. Jeremy swallowed hard. His heart hammered against his ribs. What the hell had he gotten himself into? Slowly, he inched away, careful not to disturb them. His mind raced. This wasn't normal. None of this was normal. No matter how much his body had relaxed in their presence last night, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Sliding out of bed, he grabbed his robe and tiptoed toward the bathroom, his breath shallow, hands trembling slightly. He splashed cold water onto his face, staring at his reflection in the mirror. Think, Jeremy. Think. He was a logical man, a rational thinker. He had spent his entire life avoiding risks, always calculating his moves, always in control. But ever since he had won the Stellar Corp lottery, his life had become anything but controlled. 2 alien women had entered his home, moved into his space, anticipated his every need. And last night, he exhaled sharply, gripping the edges of the sink. They were manipulating him. They had to be. But why? And how? The faintest whisper of movement caught his attention. His body tensed. They were awake. Jeremy turned, heart pounding, as Sani leaned against the bathroom doorway, her pink hair cascading down her shoulders, those violet eyes studying him with quiet amusement. "You left before we could say good morning," she murmured. Jeremy forced a chuckle, though it came out strained. "Didn't want to wake you too. I needed some air." Sani stepped closer. "You seemed troubled last night." Jeremy stiffened. Lola's voice drifted in from the bedroom, soft and melodic. "You doubt us." Jeremy turned sharply. She was standing by the bed now, watching him. Her long azure hair framed her striking features, her luminous skin reflecting the soft morning light. His pulse quickened. They could sense his thoughts. Empathic abilities, he muttered, piecing things together. That's how you always know what I want before I even say it, isn't it? Lola nodded, stepping toward him. It is part of who we are. Jeremy backed up against the sink. Then tell me this. Have you been influencing me? Controlling me in any way? For the first time, Sani hesitated. A flicker of something, guilt, crossed her expression. Not in the way you think. Jeremy clenched his jaw. That's not an answer. Lola sighed. We cannot manipulate your mind, Master Jeremy, but our presence can make certain emotions more pronounced. Jeremy's fists tightened. So you admit it. You're affecting me. Sani stepped forward, reaching out. Not deliberately. It's part of our biology. Jeremy flinched away from her touch. I need some time to think. Lola's face fell. Master Jeremy. Just give me space, he muttered, moving past them and heading for the living room. He needed answers, and he wasn't going to get them from the Zenians. A call for help. Jeremy dropped onto the couch, grabbing his phone. There was only one person he could trust with something like this. Mike. His coworker had been the one to warn him about the lottery. The one who had raised suspicions about the true nature of the Stellar Corp prize. Jeremy's fingers trembled as he dialed. Dude, you finally listening? Mike answered after 2 rings, voice laced with concern. Jeremy swallowed hard. I don't know. Something's not right. There was silence on the other end. Then, you need to get out of there. Jeremy blinked. What? Listen, man. Mike's voice dropped to a whisper. I did some digging. You're not the first lottery winner to get assigned alien companions. Jeremy's stomach clenched. What are you saying? There have been others. And guess what? They all disappeared. Jeremy's blood ran cold. Mike continued, urgency in his voice. I don't know what's going on with Stellar Corp, but something is seriously messed up. Those Zenians, they're not just maids. They're... A loud crackling noise burst through the speaker. Then, silence. Jeremy stared at his phone, heart pounding. The call had been cut. They were listening. The walls have ears. Jeremy slowly lowered his phone, his hands clammy with sweat. He wasn't alone. A presence stirred behind him. He turned slowly. Lola was standing in the doorway, watching. You spoke to your friend, she said softly. Jeremy's pulse thundered in his ears. Did you cut my call? Lola shook her head. We don't need to. They're already listening. Jeremy's breath caught. They. Not Sani and Lola. Someone else. Who's listening? He demanded. Lola hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Stellar Corp. Jeremy's vision blurred with disbelief. All this time, he thought he had won a prize. But had he actually just become property? The pieces started falling into place. The Zenian companions weren't just here to serve him. They were assigned to him. They weren't protecting him from the outside world. They were protecting the outside world from him. Jeremy's entire world tilted on its axis. He was being watched, tracked, controlled. He wasn't free. He had never been free. Sani appeared beside Lola, her expression unreadable. Master Jeremy, we need to talk. Jeremy backed away. He needed to run, to escape, to find out the truth. But before he could move, a loud knock echoed through the penthouse. Jeremy turned toward the front door, dread curdling in his stomach. Whoever was on the other side wasn't here to deliver good news. The knock at the door. The knock echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Jeremy's entire body went rigid, his breath caught in his throat. For a split second, he debated ignoring it. Maybe if he stayed silent, whoever was outside would just leave. But deep down, he knew that wasn't going to happen. His fingers curled into fists as his mind raced through the possibilities. Was it Stellar Corp? Had Mike's call triggered something? Had they decided he was asking too many questions? Behind him, Sani and Lola were deathly still. They weren't panicking. They weren't running to hide. They knew who was on the other side. That realization sent a cold shiver down Jeremy's spine. He turned to them, forcing his voice to stay steady. "Who is it?" Sandy's luminous violet eyes flicked to the door. "We were hoping this moment wouldn't come so soon." Jeremy's heart pounded harder. "What does that mean?" Lola took a slow step forward, her azure hair catching the morning light. "It means that from this moment forward, you are no longer just an ordinary human." Another loud knock, this time firmer, more insistent. Jeremy exhaled sharply. No more stalling. With a deep breath, he crossed the room, every muscle in his body screaming at him to turn around and run. Instead, he placed his hand on the biometric scanner. A quiet beep sounded. The lock disengaged. The door slid open. And standing in the hallway, dressed in an all-black suit, was a man who radiated authority. Short, cropped, dark hair, icy gray eyes, a face that looked like it had never known warmth or mercy. Agent Bricks. Jeremy knew his type instantly. He didn't just work for Stellar Corp. He was something much worse. Bricks smiled, but there was no kindness in it. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. I believe we need to have a little chat. A conversation with the enemy." Jeremy didn't invite him in. He didn't have to. Bricks stepped inside anyway. The agent's eyes swept over the room, assessing everything. His gaze lingered briefly on Sandy and Lola before flicking back to Jeremy. "I imagine you have some questions." Jeremy crossed his arms, his jaw tight. "That depends. Are you going to actually answer them?" Bricks chuckled softly, the sound devoid of humor. "You're sharper than most." "That's good. Means we can skip the usual pleasantries." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black device, no larger than a deck of cards. He placed it on the coffee table and tapped the top. A soft humming field of static energy pulsed outward. Jeremy frowned. "What is that?" "Privacy. Asterisk asterisk Bricks said simply asterisk asterisk. Prevents certain ears from listening in." "You're welcome." Jeremy's stomach twisted. They'd really have been listening. Bricks exhaled, then spoke. "The Zenians have already told you some of it, I imagine. But let's make things official. You are currently under the observation of Stellar Corp. You were selected for the lottery, yes. But it wasn't random." Jeremy's hands clenched into fists. "So you rigged it." Bricks shrugged. "We curated it. Chose individuals who met very specific criteria. You were one of them." Jeremy shot a look at Sandy and Lola. "So what are they?" "Spies. Mind controllers. What's their actual job?" Bricks turned toward them, his face unreadable. "Tell him." The room fell into a charged silence. Lola took a step forward, her expression unusually serious. "We were assigned to you, Master Jeremy, because you are not an ordinary human." Jeremy stared. "What?" "You are an anomaly," Sandy added, her voice quieter than usual. "Something about you makes you different from the rest of your species." Jeremy's pulse spiked. "That doesn't make sense. I'm just some guy who worked a desk job. How the hell am I different?" Brick's gray eyes bored into him. "Because you survived." Jeremy blinked. "Survived what?" Brick studied him, then sighed. "Ever heard of the Black Zenith Project?" Jeremy shook his head. Bricks nodded as if he expected that answer. "Of course you haven't. It doesn't officially exist." He took a seat on the couch, fingers steepled. 32 years ago, Stellar Corp launched a classified program to enhance human genetic potential. We introduced modifications, tiny, barely detectable changes. The first wave of subjects, all of them failed. Their bodies couldn't handle it. They died before they were even out of childhood. Jeremy's stomach twisted. "That's horrific." Bricks didn't blink. It was science. The air in the room grew heavier. Jeremy's voice was tight. "And you're telling me I was one of those subjects?" Bricks smiled again. This time, It reached his eyes. The only one who lived. The last experiment. Jeremy felt like the floor had been ripped out from under him. He had always been healthy, stronger than most. He barely got sick, healed fast from injuries, and had always been sharper than his peers. He had assumed it was luck. Now, it wasn't luck. It was engineering. Bullshit, Jeremy hissed. If that's true, why wouldn't my parents know? Why wouldn't I know? Bricks gave him a pitying look. Your parents weren't your biological parents, Jeremy. You were placed with them after the project was shut down. No records, no trails. You were supposed to be an unknown variable, a ghost. But then you won the lottery, and we couldn't ignore you anymore. Jeremy staggered back, shaking his head. No, no way. I don't believe you. Bricks didn't seem fazed. That's fair. It's a lot to process. But deep down, you've always felt it, haven't you? The way your body reacts faster than it should. The way your mind absorbs information quicker than others. The way you always sensed you weren't quite like everyone else. Jeremy's breath came in short, uneven bursts. Sani and Lola hadn't moved. They had known. They had always known. Jeremy turned on them. That's why you're here, isn't it? You're not maids. You're handlers. Lola's expression was unreadable. We are here to protect you. Jeremy laughed bitterly. Protect me from what? Bricks stood. From them. Jeremy froze. Bricks picked up the black device from the table, his gray eyes locking onto Jeremy's. There are others out there who want you, Thompson. And they're coming. Jeremy's stomach dropped. Who? Bricks stepped closer, lowering his voice. The ones who made you. The ones who made him. Jeremy stood frozen, his mind struggling to process the impossible truth Agent Bricks had just revealed. The ones who made you are coming. The words echoed in his head like a relentless drumbeat. His whole life, every moment, every decision, had been built on the assumption that he was just an ordinary man, a man who had worked a mundane job, paid his bills, lived a normal life. Now, all of that was unraveling. His past wasn't his past. His life wasn't his life. He wasn't even sure if he was human. Sani and Lola stood motionless, their glowing eyes unreadable. They had known. They had always known. Jeremy clenched his fists. His pulse was hammering, his thoughts spiraling. Tell me everything. Right now. Bricks exhaled, adjusting the cuffs of his suit. All right, Thompson. You want the truth. Here it is. He tapped the black device on the table. The air around them hummed as the security field pulsed, shielding their conversation from listening ears. Bricks leaned forward, his gray eyes sharp as a blade. You are part of something called Project Black Zenith, a genetic experiment that was meant to push the boundaries of human evolution. It was supposed to create something more than human. Stronger, smarter, faster. Jeremy felt his body grow tense, but it failed. Bricks tilted his head. No, it worked. You're the proof. Jeremy took a step back. Then why am I only hearing about this now? Why was I dumped into a normal life if I'm some kind of breakthrough? Shouldn't I have been trained? Monitored? Bricks smirked. That's the thing, Thompson. The people who ran the project weren't trying to create soldiers. They were trying to create something that could live undetected. A perfect adaptation. A human who didn't even know he wasn't fully human. Jeremy's stomach twisted. They had let him live his whole life as an experiment. Bricks continued, his voice like steel. But there was one problem. You weren't the only one. Jeremy's breath hitched. What? Bricks met his gaze. There were others. But unlike you, they didn't disappear into normal lives. They were repurposed. Turned into something else. Something dangerous. A chill crawled down Jeremy's spine. What are you saying? Brick's voice was flat. You were supposed to be the control group, the natural evolution of the experiment. The others, they were modified, enhanced further. And now, he stepped closer. They want you back. The hidden enemy. A sudden sound made Jeremy whip around. Sani and Lola had moved, not subtly, not gracefully, but instinctively. They had placed themselves between him and the door. Brix noticed too. His expression didn't change, but his posture did. His fingers twitched slightly, his stance shifting, like a predator preparing to strike. Jeremy's heart skipped a beat. Were they protecting him, or preventing him from leaving? Sani, Lola. His voice was low. Are you working for them? For the first time, Sani hesitated. Jeremy's stomach dropped. Sani's glowing violet eyes met his, and there was something there. Guilt. Lola took a slow step forward. Master Jeremy, we were assigned to you for a reason. We. Brix cut her off. He doesn't need your rehearsed answers, Zenian. He needs the truth. Lola's face remained calm, but her fingers twitched. Jeremy felt like his lungs were collapsing. His trust, what little of it remained, was shattering. You're not my maids. His voice was barely above a whisper. You're my handlers. Sani exhaled slowly. It's more complicated than that. Jeremy took a step back. No, it's not. Brix suddenly raised a hand. We don't have time for this. Jeremy frowned. Why? Then he saw it. The security field was flickering. Brix cursed under his breath. They're already here. A fight for survival. The lights in the penthouse dimmed. Jeremy's breath caught. The entire room was filled with a heavy, unmistakable presence. They weren't alone. Sani and Lola reacted first. In an instant, their bodies shifted, their glowing skin flaring brighter, hotter. A second later, the glass wall behind them shattered. A figure moved in the darkness outside. Jeremy barely had time to register it before it lunged. Brix moved fast, inhumanly fast. His hand flashed to his hip, pulling out a sleek black firearm that pulsed with an energy Jeremy didn't recognize. He fired. The blast hit the intruder square in the chest, sending them flying backward through the broken window. But they didn't scream. They didn't even react. Jeremy's blood ran cold. Sani turned toward him, her voice urgent. Master Jeremy, we have to move. The floor beneath them rumbled. A drone, sleek, black, and humming with power, descended through the shattered glass. Jeremy instinctively ducked. Brix fired another shot. This one hit the drone's hull, but it barely made a dent. The drone's scanners locked onto Jeremy. A deep robotic voice boomed through the room. Project to Black Zenian, SSETLOCATED. Executing reclamation. Jeremy's chest tightened. Brix turned to him. Run. Sani grabbed his wrist. We'll protect you. Jeremy's instincts screamed at him to fight, to resist. But deep down, he knew. This was just the beginning.